and STEM fields. Okay, so that is something that you might want to consider. Again, cost of living is also an important thing that you should consider, because like in UK, major cities like Vancouver and Toronto have high cost of living, so that will also add up to your cost. Okay, so your entire funding that will get affected by whichever city you choose to stay in, right? The next country that I want to talk about is Australia. So like Europe, like UK, the Australian National University, University of Sydney, Melbourne. So these are top universities that make it to top QS university rankings. Again, a very limited number, but then work permits are easy for international students. And it is like 3 years for masters after you graduate and 4 years for PhD students. So like I mentioned, it is a very, very good option for work permit. And from last year, they've also increased the work permit by another year. So now you can get a work permit up to 4 years for masters and up to 5 years for your PhD after you graduate. Okay, so that's a pretty decent visa work permit that you will get. Okay, the tuition is 50 to 60,000 Australian dollars per year. Again, this is an average that I'm talking about. Like any other country, the high cost of living is there in the top cities like Melbourne and Sydney. And but then again, for Australia, if you are thinking of applying, I just want to let you know that the country is slightly racist towards international students. Not racist in a very violent way, but then it is slightly racist, so you might want to consider that before applying. But then again, Australia produces a very good number of jobs every year. So the job market is comparatively large as compared to UK and Canada. So you might want to consider that factor also if you're looking for long-term settlement, and if you're looking for permanent residency in Australia. Okay. So this is like just a comparison of software engineering salaries per year that an average software engineer would make. So this is like an average number taken. So as you can see, US beats any country by a significant amount, and the salary in the US is much, much higher as compared to any other country. Okay, with the lowest being Germany, France, Netherlands, and then UK, Australia, and Canada. So like I said, the salaries are much higher if you choose United States as your country of study. But then again, it is difficult to get work visa. Okay, so but then this is just a comparison for reference, and you might want to consider this factor before applying. And especially if you're not looking to come back to your home country, and if you're looking to work in whichever country you apply for graduate studies. The next decision that would very, very significantly affect your graduate studies is whether you want to pursue your master's or PhD. So there's another thing like an integrated PhD. That's also another course, and I'm going to talk about that as well. So first, let's talk about masters. So masters is like your undergrad, an extension of your undergrad college. Okay, so it's a 2-year credit course, and it's less of research and more of credit courses that you will have to go through in your masters. Okay, so generally in any country, the masters is not funded. You might get some scholarship from outside, but then generally the program does not fund master students. And masters can sometimes, in some cases, if you are interested in research while you are pursuing your masters, you can convert your masters into a PhD. If you are fascinated by some research lab in your university, you can apply for PhD, and you can convert your masters to a PhD. Okay, so and then PhD again is like a 4 to 6 year course. It is a very big commitment if you look at the program, because it takes time. Usually it takes more time in US as compared to other countries. It is generally funded, like I said, through teaching and research assistantships and fellowships. But then another downside of PhD is that it cannot be converted to masters. Okay, so if you want to apply for PhDs, it is very important that you are sure that you want to pursue PhD. Okay, and if at some point in your PhD you find that you're running out of patience, it is not possible to go back to masters. Okay, so in that case, if you're unsure of whether you want to go to masters or PhD, it is better to go for masters. And then there's another program that is very famous in most of the universities, that is the integrated PhD. So this is like a combination of masters and PhD. Okay, so this will give you a degree of masters also, and it will give you a PhD degree also once you graduate from integrated PhD. The main advantage of this program is that if you find yourself running out of patience, and if you find that you cannot continue PhD, you can just take your masters and graduate in 2 years. Okay, so this is an option that gives you that out, if you want, and it can be converted to masters also. Okay, and you get a master's degree also, and then you graduate once you're done with your masters. But then again, a PhD and an integrated PhD would need a strong research background for you to get into these programs. Okay, and like I said, for the PhD and the integrated PhD, it is funded. So TAs and RAs are available, and you can get funded through either of these or through fellowships. Okay. So admission criteria for PhD and masters, I'll just take you through a quick synopsis of how the admission criteria is different for these two programs. So for PhDs, it's not about how stellar your profile is. It is more about if your research profile is a good fit for the university. Okay, so it is possible that your profile is exceptional, outstanding, and if you're applying for PhD, it's possible that your research work is not aligning with the work done in the research lab, so you might actually not get an admit. But then on the other hand, it is also possible that if you find a relevant professor, if you find the work that you're doing is already in sync with the work that is being carried on the in the research lab, and if you have an average profile, you might get into a PhD program because your research work aligns with the research lab. Okay, so it's the PhD admission is all about a good fit between the research work of the candidate and the work done in the research lab, and how the professor is, how the professor likes your work. Okay, so it's all about a good fit. Okay, like I said, you will need a strong research background if you're applying to PhD, and an entire page of your resume is covered with your research work if you're applying to PhD. So you need a very very strong research background. And for masters, comparatively, the universities mostly look at stellar profiles, exceptional academics, or if not exceptional GPAs, they look for very very good research profiles. And if you have a work experience, well and good, the work experience stands out really. So it's if you've done internships, you can add that also. So it's all about upselling your profile when you're applying for masters, and making your profile look exceptional when you're applying to this particular program. And then again, a research work is like unexpected when you're applying for masters, but then if you have a research work in your profile, it definitely elevates your profile. Okay, it makes your profile stand out. So this is the main difference between the admission criteria in the PhD and the masters. The next point that we will be talking is the funding for your grad school. Okay, so I will take you through the loan process, how and when you should process your loan, and how you should go about it. Okay, so loan process generally happens after you get your I-20 form, after you get an admit into the university and they send you an I-20 form, and that is when you actually start applying for the loan. But then of course you have to start planning from that for the loan right away. Okay, so we are at the end of April now, and you need to know that the universities you're applying to, they have what tuition cost, and out of that how much loan you're going to apply for. So generally students apply for a loan of 45 to 50 lakh rupees, and it is generally repaid within 2 to 3 years after they graduate. So that is very much possible, and most of the students take out educational loans. Okay, so generally private universities are expensive than public universities. It's like a general rule of thumb. And funding, if you want to consider, it's important to not just consider the tuition fees. Okay, you also have to consider other factors like your health insurance, your rent, your living expenses like groceries, utilities, etc., and your other cost of living. Okay, so you also have to consider these points before you plan your funding situation. Okay, it is possible to get an on-campus job when you actually go to the university, and like I said, it's possible to get a teaching and research assistantship also but these things mostly happen when you go to the university, and you can't really rely on them for your funding situation before you go. Okay, so for your visa processing, for your visa interview, you would need at least $10,000, a minimum of $10,000 in your bank account for a student visa. Okay, so that is, I would say, a general rule of thumb. You have to consider that when you're applying for visa. So next, I would talk about the TA and RA fellowship. So the teaching assistantship is something that is more of into grading assignments, lectures, and it aligns mostly with the master's course. Okay, so it's mainly about, you have to give lectures on behalf of the professor, and these you get extra credits for the TA and RA, and you can combine it with masters. So it's generally a very good fit with the masters program. The research assistantship is more of the research work, and it's more suitable for PhD students. You also get a research work stipend in the research assistantships. Okay, so you can get up to $2,000 stipend if you are selected for a research assistantship. And the fellowship is like a scholarship basically, for PhD students. What generally happens is, for the first 2 or 3 years, you're covered under a fellowship, and then after that your fellowship gets over. After that, you have to apply for a research assistantship. Okay, like I said, it's possible to get up to $2,000 to $2,500 of stipend for your fellowship and your research assistantship. And out of that, considering everything, on an average, you end up saving approximately $300 to $400 per month. Okay, so that's very much possible, and that's all about the difference between TAs, RAs, and fellowships. So coming back to the funding for your grad school. So I've just given you like a general example of Prodigy Finance. It's a very general example. So what generally happens is, when you're applying for the educational loans, when you're thinking about applying for educational loans, you have to consider the interest rates as well. Okay, so the interest rate starts from 11.5%, and it can go as high as 13.5%. Okay, and generally on these websites of HDFC, Credila, or Prodigy Finance, they have a loan calculator also. So you can just put in your loan amount in here, and you can put in the period of repayment, and you can put in the interest rate, and you will get the monthly repayment value. So this is how you can plan your funding situation in advance by using the loan calculator. Okay, this is the link, and don't worry, we'll be sharing the links in the description of the YouTube video also. So it's fine if you just follow along with me right now. Okay, so the next example I want to show is the Union Bank of India. So for these institutions, generally what happens is they cover some universities. Okay, so some universities are affiliated with these institutions, and if you end up going to that school, and if you end up applying to the loan in the particular institution that is supporting that university, that is covered under this university, your rate of interest will be lower. Okay, so make sure that your university is covered before you're applying for loan in a particular institution, because that will lower your rate of interest, and it will be financially beneficial for you. Okay, so make sure you do that. And then eligibility criteria is also something that you should consider when you're applying for educational loans, or even now for at this moment, realistically in April, you should think about eligibility criteria when you are going to apply for loans next year when you get your I-20s. Okay, so an academic background is a very important factor that is very, I think I would say, crucial in getting an educational loan. And then a credit score also. So credit score is also something that is very important, and it is a major deciding factor if you would get an educational loan or no. A GRE score also, I would say, is applicable in a few cases. If you have taken the GRE, and if that particular institution is giving you some interest waiver, if you have a good GRE score, let's say above 320 or 325, then that is something that you would like to consider. And like I said, some institutions are giving waivers for good GPAs, for good GRE scores, and good credit scores also. So you will end up getting lesser interest rates for these institutions. Okay, so make sure you do your research properly before applying to any institution for an educational loan. Another important point I want to mention here is that even if you are able to fund yourself for your masters or PhD, it is important that you apply for educational loan for some amount at least, because in the visa process it is much easier when you are applying for an educational loan. Okay, so you will have to produce lesser number of documents when you have applied for educational loan. Okay, so that is also something you should consider. Another very important point I want to mention here is that you should be aware of the processing fees and other charges, because if you go to these institutions and if you ask them about, they will tell you everything about the loan process, but they might not tell you about the processing fees. So processing fees are generally 1% of the loan amount, and that has to be paid upfront, okay, when you are applying for the loan. So that is not something that can be repaid in EMI form. That has to be, that is something that has to be like paid upfront. Okay, so if you take an educational loan of 50 lakhs, 1% is a significant amount. 1% of 50 lakhs is a very significant amount, and you have to make sure that you have that much amount ready to pay this institution as a processing fees. Another important point is the late payment. So considering that you graduate in 2 or 3 years from your masters and you get a job, so it is important that you pay these EMIs on time, because they have a very high late payment charges. Okay, so for example, HDFC Credila has 2% interest every month on an overdue of EMI payment. Okay, so think about it, 24% every year. That's the late payment fees, and that is very significant. Okay, so make sure you're paying these EMIs on time, so that you can repay the loan within 2 to 3 years after you graduate, right? Like I said, it is important to select a suitable repayment term that matches your program duration. And programs, these institutions have, selection options also that you can select when you're applying for a loan. So if you're going for masters, if it's going to take 2 years, it's an auto set mode that you will, after you get a job, you will start paying your EMIs after 2 years. Okay, it is very important that, like I said, you start repaying these loans as soon as you graduate. Okay, the next important key decision that we come to is the fall versus spring cohort. So most of the students are apply for fall cohort, and there are reasons for that. Okay, so it so happens that the fall cohort begins in August. It is a comparatively larger cohort, and there are a larger number of programs covered in the fall cohort as compared to the spring cohort. Okay, so it's possible that you might search for a spring cohort for a certain program, and you might not find it at all because that program is only taking fall cohort. Okay, so unless you have a very specific reason of applying for spring, you should apply for fall. Okay, because that coincides well with the summer internships also. So it's a very good decision to apply for fall cohort. The intake is much larger, the cohort size is much larger, and the deadlines are usually December, and for spring the deadlines are usually June or July. Okay, so unless you have a specific reason, like I said, it's better to apply for fall cohort. Now we'll be talking about scholarships. So I'll be taking you through some scholarships that you can apply to from India and abroad. I will be dividing these scholarships into no interest or low interest loans and the actual funding that you will get. Okay, so the first low interest loan that from India that you can get is the JN Tata Endowment Scholarship. So this is not a scholarship, actually it's a low interest loan. Okay, so you will get a loan at a very subsidized rate of 2%, and you can get up to 10 lakh rupees loan, and in this case, and you will also get a travel grant. Okay, and interest rate can be waived if the loan is repaid within 3 to 7 years. So like I mentioned before, students generally repay the loans within 2 to 3 years after they graduate. So it's very much possible to waive off this interest rate when, if you are selected for this particular scholarship. Now, and if you have forgotten to apply for this scholarship before you are going for your university, it's also possible that you can apply after you go there during your first year of study. Okay, so that's also possible, and generally they have very strict selection process. They have like aptitude tests and interviews, so you will have to go through the selection processes to be selected. Okay, so this is the first example of low interest loan. The second no interest loan is the Narottam Seksariya scholarship. So this is a no interest loan again. So you will not be charged any interest for this loan. They also provide you funding up to 10 lakh rupees. So 10 lakh rupees loan you get, and you will have to repay the same amount without any interest rate. Okay. Like I said, they also have a very strict criteria for this particular scholarship as well, and you can apply for this scholarship even after you go to your university during your first year of study. Now I'll be talking about the funded scholarships. So this is the actual funding that you will get from India if you're an Indian citizen. The first scholarship is the Inlak Shivdasani Foundation. So this is applicable if you're applying for either masters or PhD. It is applicable if you are applying for USA or Europe, and you can get up to $100,000 of funding in this particular scholarship. Okay. But it is also imperative that your program is included in this particular scholarship. Okay. So if your target program is included in this scholarship, you will be eligible for selection, and if not, you will not be eligible for selection, right? So make sure before applying for this scholarship, they have a list of programs that are included in the scholarship. So make sure your program is one of them. Okay. The next is the National Overseas Scholarship. So this scholarship is basically for economically backward students and economically backward families who need funding support to fund their children, or to fund themselves for going abroad for graduate studies. Okay. You can get up to $15,000 of funding in this particular scholarship. And the only thing is that you might want to consider that you will have to produce a caste certificate to get selected for this, and your family income should be less than rupees 8 lakhs. So you will also have to submit proofs of all these things like caste certificate and your family income certificate, and also you will need to be less than 35 years of age. So there's an age criteria also that is that is something that you might want to consider. The next scholarship is the KC Mahindra Education Trust. So, if you get selected for this particular scholarship, you will get up to 10 lakh rupees funding if you're in the top three. So they take out rankings every year for their scholarships, and you will get rupees 5 lakhs if you are below the top three. So that is there, and the only criteria is that you will have to get first class in your undergrad studies throughout. So there has to be all the semesters that you get first class in all of your semesters. Okay. And that is the selection criteria for this particular scholarship. The next scholarship is the ADB scholarship, and this is funded by the Japanese government. It includes a few universities in the US, but it doesn't include any universities in Europe. So if you're applying to Europe, you shouldn't apply to this scholarship. Okay. It includes obviously universities in Japan, and the only condition is that you will require to produce a certificate of 2 years of work experience if you want to be considered for this particular scholarship, and a proof that you will return to your home country after your graduation. So these two conditions are very important for you to get selected into this particular scholarship. Another scholarship is the Education Future International Scholarship, where you can get a funding of up to 10 lakhs for both graduate and undergrad studies. So even if you're applying for undergrad, you will be considered for this particular scholarship. It includes studies in US and Europe, and the only condition is that 50% of the expenses must be funded by an educational loan. Okay. So you will need to produce those loan documents when you apply for this particular scholarship. They also have a first class criteria. So 60% criteria in your undergrad studies is also a criteria that they have. Okay. The next is the USIF scholarship. So this is mainly for US universities. Again, a minimum of 3 years of work experience proof is required if you want to be considered. And the only thing that I want to stress upon is that they have super early deadlines. So the deadlines are in this May if you want to apply to fall of next year. Okay. So make sure that you want to check out this particular scholarship, because we are now approaching May. So it is important that you, if you want to consider the scholarship, you do your research and you produce the required documents for you to be eligible for selection. Okay, you can apply for either masters or PhD. So even it doesn't matter whether which program you're applying to. If you have 3 years of work experience and you want to apply to US universities, you can apply for this particular scholarship. Okay, and the scholarship deadlines for all the other scholarships that I mentioned are generally February of March of next year. So for all those who are applying for fall of 2026, the deadline will be next year, February, March, that is 2026. Okay. I will talk about a few scholarships in Europe now. The first is the EIT Digital Master School Scholarship. So this is basically a 2-year program that covers a few universities. So when you look at their website, you will see a list of universities that they cover. The main documents that you require to be considered for this scholarship are your undergrad transcript, your CV, your SOPs, and they also give you a travel allowance. Okay, so that is also a very good scholarship, and they give you like 2 years, they cover you for 2 years. But then make sure that the universities you want to apply to are covered under this particular scholarship. Okay, you will also need to produce your TOEFL and IELTS course to be considered for this particular scholarship, right? The next is the Erasmus scholarship. In addition to the requirements for the EIT Digital Master School, you will also require to produce letters of recommendation, okay, for the Erasmus scholarship. And the duration for this can be either 1 or 2 years, and you will also get a monthly stipend. So in addition to the tuition fees coverage and the travel expenses, you will also get a monthly stipend. Okay, so that is a plus point. And Erasmus is also a very famous scholarship that you can apply to. Okay, now I want to show you a few scholarships that you can apply to in the USA. So I'll just show you an Excel sheet where yeah, so this is the Excel sheet where I've mentioned a few scholarships that are available in US that you can apply to. Now most of these scholarships are university specific, like the University of Michigan scholarships and the University of Miami STAM scholarship, or the scholarship for Stanford University. But then scholarships like the Atlas course or the Fulbright program, these are general scholarships and you can apply to these scholarships. Okay, so if you are considering to apply for these particular set of scholarships, the deadlines are usually October to December. Okay, so make sure that you have your documentation ready when you're applying for these. Okay, so the scholarships for India that I mentioned, they have deadlines of you can say like February or March, but these particular ones have deadlines in October to December. Okay, so they are like a little early than the Indian scholarships. Okay, so make sure you keep the timeline in mind, because the link will immediately deactivate itself once the application deadlines has passed. Okay, so make sure you apply to these scholarships well in advance, right? So we will now talk about the current funding situation in the US. Now, I understand that most of you are concerned about the PhD fundings and the impact on the PhD fundings due to the current funding situation. So yes, there has been an impact and a certain uncertainty around the PhD fundings. But up till now, our students, Videsh students, have not got any messages or mails regarding cancellation of their funding for the current fall of 2025 program. Okay, so we have not got any first hand information on cancelling of any funding or any scholarship or any fellowship. Okay, so whatever is happening right now is being faced basically by the students who are already pursuing their PhDs in specific domains only. So for example, like this was a news article by the University of Pennsylvania that they have approximately reduced the admissions by 35% in the School of Medicine. So like I said, it is hampering a particular set of domains in a particular university, right? So like another there was another news that said the John Hopkins scales back USAID support work around the globe. And there was another news that said that universities like Columbia have reduced their federal grants in the health department. Okay, so it affects very particular domains, and as of now, like I said, we have not got any negative or you can say funding situation, funding cancellation for our fall of 25 cohorts. So yes, you have probably have the all the news, and it's probably very uncertain right now. But then the only thing that we can do that is in our control is building a strong profile. Okay, so perfecting your application in such a way that you get funding and you are at minimum loss. Okay, if even if your funding situation gets hampered, so that is something that is in our control, and that is something that we should focus on, okay, currently. I would also talk about current visa situation in the US. In the other countries that I mentioned, there has been no significant change in the visa situation, but US is something that there is a constant volatile situation currently, and the visa scrutiny is at its peak. So it is very important that you have the correct set of documents and you're thoroughly prepared when you're going for your visa interview. You have those documents correctly and thoroughly prepared. Okay, so it is important to have your consulate documents, your admission documents, your academic and financial documents as well, okay, in the right order. And like I said, it is important to show a proof of finances also. So you will need to show at least 1.5 times the amount mentioned in your I-20. So whichever university you decide to go to, the tuition fees are mentioned at the end of the I-20, and you should show a proof of finances as considering 1.5 times the tuition fees in your bank account. Okay, so this is something that I want to prepare you with before you're applying for your visas for the current fall cohort or for the next year fall cohort. Okay, so it's important to be prepared. Now we will talk about the realistic timeline. So now, like I said, we are in the fag end of April, and you can start building your research profile in such a way that in the next 3 or 4 months you are done with your research profile, and then after that onwards you will start building your document part. Okay, so that is how you should think about starting to work with your the time that you have in your hands. You have around, like, let's say from May to December of this year, and you should spend it in a very I would say organized manner and disciplined manner, so that there is no rush at the time of applications. Okay, so the first 3 or 4 months you should focus heavily on building your research profile. Building your research profile, I mean writing a research paper or a review paper and getting it published in a good journal, so that you have a publication section that you mention in your resume. So you have a good point to write under the publication section, and like I said, a good research profile will elevate your the overall profile by 5 to 10 times, and it will also help you offset if you have a low GPA. That will also help you offset that. Okay, and now is the time when you should start university shortlisting also. So I would suggest make a big list of 25-30 universities, and then start reducing that particular list to 9 to 10 universities, and maintain an Excel sheet where on the leftmost column you're mentioning the name of the university, and on the right from the column 2 onwards you're mentioning all the details like the application deadlines, which research lab you would want to work with, which program you want to apply to, etc. So it is very important that you start working on your universities from now itself. And then the next part would come to the document preparation, like the SOP, LOR, resume. So it is important to have these three set of documents very coherent when you are making those applications, because if you have a research publication in your profile, it is important that the professor in your university is also endorsing that. Okay, so that gives a credibility to your profile, and your SOP, LOR, and resume should tell the same story. Okay, so make sure that you're preparing these documents in such a way that they're very coherent. It's fine if a few points here and there are being repeated, but they should tell the same story. Okay, and then in November you can probably start researching on scholarships and application process. So like I said, the Excel sheet that you would have maintained, set reminders for yourself that which deadline is coming in which month. And also research on scholarships, like I mentioned, is very important. The US scholarships have deadlines of from October to December, and the scholarships in India have deadlines in February and March. Okay, so research on these scholarships from now on will help you save time in those later months, where you also have to apply for those universities and also get your documents in order, right? And then December is the time, November and December is the time when you will be actually submitting the applications. Okay, so that is actually the time when you will have your profile entirely prepared, and you will just have to shoot out those applications. Okay, so this is the realistic timeline that you should make use of in the coming months. So now I am going to take you through a little bit about long-term mentorship program that Videsh has to offer. So I said, we have very good results from last year and last to last year. We have over 17 research papers in draft stage. This number has also significantly increased now. We have made 21 submissions to international conferences, and we have around 11 research internships that we have started. So we have also connected students with international professors for MHD, for PhD and masters. Okay, so what we are encouraging students is, once you get an admit, or once you have applied to a particular university, you should get in touch with a particular professor in a research lab, so that you mention them, you tell them about your work, about the research work that you've done, and it so happens that the professor also ends up recommending your name to the admissions committee. So it's a win-win for you if you are getting in touch with the professor before the admission decision has been made. Okay, so we are making sure that our students are elevating and upselling their profile, and basically we make improvements to the research profile. Okay, so that will help you, like I said, offset your GPA as well, and it will overall help you elevate your profile as well. So yes, we have started receiving admits for this year as well from many universities like UIUC, Maryland, Cleveland University, etc., and lot of other universities. So admits have started coming in, and students have started making decisions of on where exactly they want to apply. Because what we are doing is, in the university selection part, we are helping students select 9 to 10 universities that they should apply to by the 3 by 3 rule. So three easy universities, three medium universities, and three dream universities. That is the rule that we are giving the students, and we are helping choose universities in such a way that it is a good mix of top universities also, and tier 2 or tier 3 universities also. Okay, so these are just some of the messages that we have received from our students. And we have, like I said, a lot of students have gotten into top universities and their dream universities and dream programs in 2023 and 24. And for this year also, a lot of students are getting admits from very, very good universities. Okay, so I would say the main thing that I want to focus on here is the improvement in your profile. Okay, so elevating your profile, your existing profile, and then upselling it is also very important. So it most of the times it happens that students have good profiles, they have good internship experiences, they have good work experiences, but it is important to collate that in a way that it's well written in a good SOP in like 2 or 3 pages. So it's very important to summarize all those points, all those achievements in your SOP, resume, and your portfolio website, so that when the admissions committee is looking at your profile, they're immediately impressed by it. So the phase 1 of the LTM basically is focusing on building your research profile, and we help you to write a review paper in this case. So we take you from writing the review paper basics to the writing the manuscript part, and we even help you with selecting a particular journal for paper submission as well. So right from the basics to selecting a journal and submitting your review paper, we are with you every step of the way, and this will take like 3 or 4 months. So you will get one first author paper published within 3 to 4 months. So if you start now, now would be a perfect time to start actually to write your research paper, and by the time you're in July, you would be submitting the research paper to a journal. Okay, and then you would be working on the next part of your applications, that is the document part, like the SOP, resume, LORs, and rest of the things. So that will perfect your application, and that will make sure that you have a very very strong application when you're submitting to the university. Okay, another important point I would like to add here is building a portfolio website and the importance of portfolio website. So we are also helping students build their own portfolio websites, and that is something that we are extremely confident that elevates the whole experience by a lot. Okay, so building your portfolio website really helps a lot. Okay, and it is very important that you have your own portfolio website. Now I will show you just an example of a portfolio website of uh, Dr. Raj. So this is Dr. Raj's portfolio website, and look at how he has mentioned all his publications and all his citations in this particular portfolio website. Okay, so he has made different tabs like publications, stocks, and media, where he has mentioned everything he can, from visuals to figures and tables, and everything that he wants to add he has written in the portfolio website. Now the beauty of portfolio website is that this is something that you can't add to your SOP or resume. Okay, you are not able to add this figure in either of your documents, right? And this is something that is a dynamic thing once again, because if when your admissions committee is viewing your resume or your profile and you mention a link to your portfolio website, they're immediately going to that and they're viewing it in a dynamic form. Okay, so it's very important to have a portfolio website, right? So what we are helping you with is, first of all, with your research profile, we help you to identify good and easy problem statements. That is very important. And we teach you to write papers from scratch. So if you're new to the research background, and if for up till now you've not done any research, we help you and we teach you how to write papers. And also, like I said, we help you to build a very realistic timeline. Okay, so this is the timeline that I want to show you. So this is a general timeline of the review paper writing that we have broken down into a number of sub steps. So this is the timeline that we'll be building for you for the research part of your profile, and this will essentially make sure that you finish this within 3 or 4 months, and you're not taking more than that. Okay, so it's possible that due to some commitments, work commitments, study commitments, exam commitments, you're not able to focus on 1 week or maximum 2 weeks or during the weekdays. But then even if you take out 2 to 3 hours every week, it's very much possible to finish a review paper within 3 or 4 months. Okay, so this is about realistic timeline. And then we also figure out how to select journals to submit your papers. Okay, so selection of journals is also something that is very very important, and we help you with that as well. So again, at the end, if you're interested in the long-term mentorship program, you can send a mail to hello@flyvidesh.com with all your details, like your name, your details of work or study, and when you're planning to apply for grad school, your career aspirations, like which program you're thinking of applying, and you also attach a latest copy of your resume as well. So it's important that you send us a copy of your resume so that we can have a look and reach out to us with all these details. And make sure that you don't send us one liners, because it's very difficult to get back to people who send us one liners. So refrain from doing that. And we have now come to the end of this webinar, and I want to thank all of you for attending. I am stopping my screen share now, and I think we have like a couple of or 3 minutes now before we go to the end. And if Dr. Raj or Dr. Rajat wants to take any questions, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Radhika, for the excellent webinar. There have been a lot of questions in the chat talking about the difference between masters and PhD and which one is suited uh, for the candidates. So basically, PhD is a very personal decision because it's a pretty long commitment of 4 to 5 years. So unless you're pretty sure of pursuing research and spending that much time, uh, you should not go for a PhD. And how will you know that? You will only know that if you try out research either in your bachelor's, or if you take up a master's degree and pursue research with a professor, so that you can get some flavor of research. So in my case, I did some kind of research in my undergrad and I published a paper, and I was pretty sure that I wanted to do PhD. And then there are some people who are interested in getting jobs in the industry. So for that as well, having a research profile is like a common denominator for all the things, getting good admits in masters, PhD, or even getting jobs in the industry, because people will respect you more if they see your resume and see that, oh, okay, this person has 2 or 3 publications in the publication section. So if December is the time where you're applying for fall of 26, then the diagram which you had shown before is extremely insightful. These 2, 3 months should be spent in building your research profile, and then you should focus on application preparation in detail, which includes the document preparation, SOP, resume, and LOR. There are many students who have also written in the chat that they did not get admits last year. So they are asking what should I improve, etc. So there are mainly 4 things to improve. One is your research profile, then the quality of SOP, quality of resume, and the quality of LORs. And all these 4 documents should tell a very coherent story, as Radhika was also mentioning. Okay, let's see if we have any other question. Okay, it looks like we are almost at 8 p.m. So let us wrap up this webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We'll be sharing the recording of this webinar on YouTube as well. All the best, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
So
Bye.
much. Bye bye.